Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you this morning, chat? Alexandra, good to see you. See you're the first one there this morning, which is awesome. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for being here bright and early. I'm going to turn down the music in my ears. Welcome to Your His Story, the first and currently only channel at Twitch that just shares the testimonies of God in the lives of gamers, everything he's doing around the world. We're so excited you're here. Appreciate you taking the time out of your week to just come get encouragement, get inspired, hopefully. And our goal here, really, I added that to the bottom of the screen, and I'm not real sure. We're doing some redesign with branding and stuff, so in a couple weeks it'll be all new and fancy. But I just wanted to really emphasize the importance and the goal of stewarding God's story for your life. Just how important that is and how much power there is in sharing your story. And so we hope that that's what you come away with, that you start to put things in place in your life to remember the things that God has done, to share them, to encourage other people with them. The root word for testimony, which is what this channel is all about, testimonies, is to do it again. We fully believe that what God has done in your life, he wants to do it again in someone else's life. And the breakthrough that he's bringing to people, God's desire is that we would share that. And through sharing it, we would empower other people to experience the same breakthrough as well. So we're just super grateful for you, super thankful that you're here on this Wednesday morning early. And I did want to briefly touch on it too. Just testimonies, they're so important. So many stories in the Bible of people remembering their testimonies and overcoming things that challenges they had in front of them. And the main one I always remember is just David. David goes to kill Goliath, and he gets his character gets attacked by his brothers when he shows up. His leader, Saul, attacks his qualifications, not being a man of war. Yet he still goes out through a crowd of hundreds of thousands of scared men with no armor, with anything, and kills Goliath. And why did he do that? Well, the whole time he's remembering, hey, I remember when I was out in the field and a lion and a bear came to take sheep away, and I literally chased it down, climbed on its back, clubbed it to death. And so I know God is with me in the field. So I know God will be with me, in this battle. I just feel like that's a strong word for this morning. Same God who's with you in the valley is the same God who's with you on the mountain. The same God who's with you in the field when you're doing your job is the same God who's with you in the battlefield when you need him. Man, that's good. So this morning, I'm going to be sharing part 2 of my story. I do have three more people, maybe 4 more, signed up for testimonies. But they were not able to make it today. And some of them have work. So what I'm going to do going forward, I might change the day. I haven't decided yet, but is I will record some testimonies, same interview setup, same everything. But I'll record them, and then I'll just do an intro on screen like I am now. And then just bring them on and interview them through, just do the recording. This channel's set up very much like a podcast, so it helps, and it's doable. So that's probably what we'll do for a few weeks, but I am still looking for testimonies. And so I just encourage everyone here, like, if you're even semi-interested or inkling to share your story or what God's done in your life in this season, please, I encourage you to go fill out the form I just put in chat. Alexandra, I'm not gonna lie, I was in prayer this morning, and I did feel like God wanted me to ask you to share your story. I know that might be kind of intimidating for you, but I would encourage you to think about it and pray about it. Yeah, I just feel like someone out there can really benefit from the journey that you've been on. So yeah, just think about it, pray about it. Let me know. You can fill out a form, and you can reach me on Discord. I'm sure you can find me on Discord. So yeah, anyway, without further ado, I think I'll get into my story. I'm trying to remember last time where I was and where we left off. For those of you who weren't here, just kind of briefly went over my story up until I met my wife. And that's where I'm gonna start in that season. So the VOD isn't up. They only allow you so many without being an affiliate to have so many VODs up. So I have all of the testimonies recorded. So I'm going to go through and start. I might edit them, or I might just literally just post them as they are on YouTube. I'm not sure yet. But I encourage you to go back and listen to it when it does come up, because part one of my testimony was pretty encouraging and pretty awesome, and God was on it. And so yeah, so I left off where we went on a mission trip down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana with our young adults group, and came back, and that whole trip kind of started the relationship that me and my wife had. And in that season, I was an intern with the young adults ministry at my church, and it was awesome, to be honest. I was serving under a pastor I loved and respected, and I was just starting to date my wife towards the end of my internship the first year. And I was still dealing with some things. I didn't have access to the internet or anything like that, so I wasn't struggling with pornography necessarily anymore, but I still had like a lot of insecurity and still that lustful, like triggering and different things. And I was going through it, to be honest, and just struggling with emotions and where am I going and what am I going to do with my life. And I remember in that season, my pastor transitioned out and a new pastor came in right at the end of my internship. And I was pretty set on doing a second year of my internship. I just love ministry. I wanted to go into ministry. And so I remember that transition. It was challenging because the new person who came in had never been in ministry before, but they were dynamic and they were a good speaker and a dynamic leader. But anyway, this person, one day I'm just having a hard day, and they kind of saw it. Hey, what's going on? I said, hey, I'm going through it. Like, I'm going through it emotionally and spiritually and just having a hard time. And he said, okay, send me an email and let me know what's going on. I'd love to hear from you. He didn't have time at the moment. He was running to and from meetings and stuff. I said, okay. So that day I sent him an email, this long email, like, hey, I'm struggling with this identity. Still that thing, the trigger and the root for pornography and unhealthy behavior and lust and all this stuff. And I just kind of unloaded everything. So a couple days later, he came by, and because I think I had a couple days in between what days I was working, he came over and he just said, hey, we've talked, me and his leadership talked about where you're at, things you're going through, and we just feel like it's a good idea if you step down, like if you're not an intern anymore. And as you can imagine, that was like incredibly painful, because here I am, I like literally bare my soul to a new leader, and it's like, hey, this is what I'm just going through. And they're like, yeah, I think you should not be a leader here anymore. It's like, I didn't say anything that bad, just because I'm struggling with some identity issues. It wasn't, And so that was really painful. And I was like, man, I was so banking on doing a second year. And I was pretty crushed, to be honest. And so Yeah, it was hard. And so a couple days later, I reached out to the pastor that was over my ministry who had left. And I didn't know what he was doing, but for the last 6 months, he'd been working on some project that he left to do. I didn't know what it was. So I had a pretty good relationship with him. So I just reached out and said, hey, can we meet? Like, I'd love to just talk to you and get some encouragement and tell you what happened. Not to be definitely not in a bad mouth sort of way, just having a hard time. And he's like, sure. So we went and had coffee at a place called Mr. Burger, which is a local joint that's amazing. Wondering if he's not in the chat. Okay. So I was wondering if my friend was in the chat. I was going to make a plug for Mr. Burger. It's just a local good joint. Anyway, sat there and had some breakfast, and I was just telling him about it. And he was in disbelief. He was just like, God, I can't believe that. He's like, people just don't realize how far you've come and how much you've grown and how just how valuable people are, and kind of like he was surprised that the leadership couldn't value, like, hey, this is just a person who's just going through something, just obviously needs some help and some wise counsel and some stuff like that, but not, oh, let's just have you leave for a little bit and get healthy, And so anyway, it was pretty painful. So I went and met with him, or that night actually, in between these meetings that night at service. The leadership was there, senior leadership, which is pretty unusual. And they encouraged me and gave me a word for this season, and just encouraged me to get healthy. And one of the things that was kind of an anchor that I held on to for a long time was the word that one of the senior leadership gave me, which was, this seems like a setback, but it's not a setback. It's a strategic step back to a comeback. And he said, when I see you ready to come back to ministry, he showed me a picture. He's like, I think you'll be ready at that point, And so I took that I anchored to it in the season, but it was hard to receive, And so anyway, I meet with this pastor, and he's like, just disbelief. And he's like, dude, I'm planning a church. You should come with me. Come plant a church with me. And I'm like, that's what you've been doing for 6 months? Like working on bylaws and stuff like that, and starting to plan it. And just like I was previous when I was asked to do an internship, I was like, dude, I'm there. I don't even care. All the details, I was like, I'm there. Like, don't even finish the sentence. I'm going to join you and be part of this. And so I did. And the nice thing is, Caitlin, my wife at the time, was working at church. She was a kids ministry one of the directors there. So she was teaching and preaching to kids and doing lessons and leading that department, or helping lead that department. And we were going to Sunday morning church, but we were also planning a church, and it started at night. So the nice thing is, on Sunday nights we could go do this. So we rented this building downtown called the Bridge Street House of Prayer, and it's just a coffee shop with a little party room, size room. And we just had worship and prayer and a little message started every week, just having fellowship and then doing that. And there's maybe 15 of us. And it was pretty awesome. God did some pretty amazing things in that season. And one of the things, the stories I'll share from that, which isn't my story, but it was pretty awesome, is four of the women part of that group, when it was small, I think there was maybe 16 of us, 4 of the women in there were having having a lot of trouble in the season having children. And 4 of them, all around the same age, all had multiple miscarriages and could not have children, tried and just kept having miscarriages. And it was very painful, really damaging season. And I remember one time, Blake, the leader, he got up and he's like, I just feel like God really wants us to pray for infertility and for this whole thing, because I think it's not right, and it's not God's will that we'd have miscarriages and we would have to struggle through that. And so he got up and prayed very specifically. We prayed into it, and within, I think, 60 days, all 4 of them were pregnant, and all 4 of them had healthy babies in the long run. And it was like supernatural, like 4 people all pregnant all at the same time, who couldn't have kids for like multiple years and multiple tries. And it was awesome. So just lots of amazing things like that. And eventually we grew, and we needed to move to a new space. So we rented a Boys and Girls Club of America building downtown. It's pretty large, actually, a big gym. And I was responsible for the tech side of it. So I ordered and purchased all the equipment, and was running sound and doing all that stuff. And it was good. We had service at night, and but there was a point at which we were transitioning to morning services. And so I stopped going to the church I was, but Caitlin, my wife, was still serving there and working there. And so I was serving there, and Caitlin was serving at the church that we originally met at. And we did that for a while. And I remember one day, a year into it, we were still part of Access Young Adult, and like we were still connected to the community, but we weren't going to church together because we were both working every Sunday. So that was challenging. But anyway, one day we're both rooted in those areas and both invested in critical parts of those ministries. And I remember one day we're driving in the car, and originally I'm from California, and we're in Michigan for this season of our life. And so I'm driving in the car, and I look over at Kayla, and I'm like, what if we just moved to California? And for her, she was like super receptive to it. Like, why would you just say that? Like, this is blowing my mind. I've always wanted to live in California. And I said, what if we moved to California? What if God wants us to move there? I just feel like a sudden thing, like maybe we should move there. And so we started talking through it and praying about it and really, really, really pressing in about it. And we heard sermons and yeah, trust me, those thoughts crossed my mind. So we started hearing sermons, reading scriptures, hearing songs. One of the songs we heard, not very many people know about the CD, but Hillsong produced a CD called Glorious Ruins. And the very first song on that CD, it starts off with, where you go, or where I go, you will go. You'll always be there, something like that. And it was like, when we heard that song, I was like, there's another reason, like, we need to go. God's going to go with us no matter what. And we started to just pray about and develop this sense that God wanted to work on my relationship with my dad. My dad is not a believer. My parents are divorced later in life after I left the house. And I just got the sense that God wanted to work on and try to restore some of that relationship. Because we were pretty much estranged at the time. Not really. I mean, call him once in a while and talk. But yeah, it wasn't a great relationship. And so we're praying through stuff, and we're just getting words and just all these things. And it was a couple months of praying. And in that time, one of like the clearest, so we're praying, we're thinking through this, we're like asking God, like, hey, we need as many signs as possible. And I remember that year we went to kids camp, and kids camp for the big church was 480 people. So it was 171 volunteers and 200 and some odd kids. And we have a mega church, so it was like a big thing, and it was a blast, and we had a great time, and God was moving. I saw some third grade through fifth grade kids experience God's presence, pray for other kids, and they get supernaturally healed, like just hear from God for themselves, like just crazy stuff. And But one of those nights, I'm sitting with my kids in the auditorium when we have our chapel, and I'm sitting behind our kids and I'm just praying. I think it was a prayer time, and I was just like, God, I need to hear from you whether we should move to California. I need like a really clear sign. I know we've been hearing scriptures and words and all these things, but like, I just want more confirmation. I was so doubting God, like, you know? And so there's a kid in front of me. His name's Diego, a little third grade Hispanic kid. And he's drawing on this piece of paper, and I was watching him and I was fascinated by it. And so I'm like looking over his shoulder for a while, and he's drawing a house, and I'm like, this is interesting. And then he writes at the top of his paper when he's done with his house, my house in California. For me, that was like, you can't get any more red alert and like obvious flashing lights and like, you know, a donkey turning and saying, go to California, you know? And I said, what did you draw this for? Like, why is this? And he just said, his family was also in the season of moving to California. And I'm like, dude, all right, now I know we're supposed to go. And so we went, and we up and we sold a bunch of stuff we had and moved out to California. And God opened doors for jobs like crazy. My wife didn't have a teaching job yet. She was in ministry, had a teaching degree, but we had my brother's friend out there. His wife was leaving a position at a church. She recommended my wife to the pastor. They hired my wife at this church. So she had a job when we moved. I had a job from Costco. I was just transferring from Costco. That opened that door. That was amazing, full-time going there. So we went there and started working on the relationship with my dad. And it was tough. It was tough. My dad's an unbeliever. And so to come to him and to have dinner, and he'd be like, so why are you guys really here? And for me to be like, hey, we feel like God wants us to work on my relationship with you. God is really interested and concerned about my relationship with you. And he just couldn't receive it. When we were there in tough times, he went and got 5 more stents put in his chest, because he has heart problems. And we're in the hospital. My wife's like, you know, so what do you think about God and where are you at? And asking these hard questions. And we were just really laser intentional in that season. But my dad kept repeating, why are you guys really here, over the year that we were there? And I kept telling him, like, God is really interested in this relationship, and tried our best to just invest and plug in and just be there. And I'll tell you what, I left all my family and went to Michigan, experienced God in a powerful way, developed a lot of tools in healing and walked with God really well. So now going back into an old family dynamic, because my brother and my mom were saved, but they still had a lot of baggage and were still always fighting. It was very much like a similar environment, less toxic and destructive, but just like similar to like how I grew up. And so going back in that environment though, I remember having these crazy experiences where I'm just sitting in a room and like my family's arguing and I'm just sitting there quietly, just taking it all in and thinking. And I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to be part of it. I didn't have to contribute to the conversation. I didn't have to do anything. I just sat there and be myself. And I remember at one point my mom's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just listening to you guys fight and bicker and don't treat each other very well. And I just don't need to contribute. I don't need to add anything to this conversation. I just think you guys need to basically grow up, is what I told them. In a nice way. And it was pretty powerful season. But one thing is we left a really tight, really life-giving, really good community of people. And we went there and we didn't have anybody. We had my family, obviously, but We tried different churches, the young adults ministry where my brother was going. We eventually found a church called Venture, who was pastored at the time by Chip Ingram. He wrote, he's an author and does a radio show called Living on the Edge, and great guy. But it wasn't for us necessarily, the church. Like we just didn't feel at home, and we struggled to find a home church, and we struggled to find relationships. Now, did find a couple relationships, and we did. Yeah, great. He's awesome. I have nothing bad to say about him. I just wanted more depth to my walk, and more depth to teaching, and more depth to what does the Holy Spirit want to do and is doing today, and things like that. That's all. So anyway, we found a couple relationships, but it wasn't much. And in that season, my wife also, through my work, I had a guy at my work find her a job at a school, so she became a teacher for the first time. And it was an inner city charter school where she had a class of 29 students, and like 20 of them didn't speak any English whatsoever. So she's a kindergarten teacher, trying to teach all Hispanic kids English and also teach them normal kindergarten things. And just that dynamic, it was challenging and it was tough, and it was just like so many things weren't well in that season, but spiritually we were like on point, and we had a mission. And for anyone lacking vision in a season of life, I'll tell you, when we had a clear vision, like we are here for this purpose, any difficulty we went through, it made so much easier. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, when you're doubting and you're thinking through stuff, you're like, no, but I know God's called us here, and this is our vision, this is our purpose. So all those things are just distractions and things the enemy's just trying to like tear us down with or distract us with. But ultimately, we're here for a purpose, and we had that purpose, and everything was going along just smoothish. And then me and my wife found out we were pregnant, and the first thought in my head is, I cannot raise my kid in California. I went to school there. I grew up there most of my life, from 3 to 20 or whatever. I was like, I know how the school systems are. I know just everything, the environment, everything. And I was like, I just can't raise my kids there. And around that time is where we started to feel this, man, we don't have community. We don't have a good church. I mean, we have a good church, but we don't have we're not finding our place. And we'd been there for 9 months, And so started praying about it. Like, what are we going to do? Do we want to move back? And we started hearing more words and more encouragement and more scriptures about moving back. And heard a sermon about finding your people and the importance of finding your people and doing life with your people and what that looks like. And so we just spent some time praying and thinking through it, and we could move back, and what does that look like? Well, by this time I'd worked on my relationship with my dad, but also my mom and my brother. And so no one knew we were pregnant yet. And I think we wanted to wait until 12 weeks. Just in case. Or 9 weeks, whatever, when you get your first ultrasound. And so I go to my mom and I say, hey mom, my mom's grown up in California 40 years plus. And I just say, hey, I think we're going to move back home. We're just feeling like God's leading, and this is kind of the thing that's going on. This is where we're going, and we'd love for you to come with us. And for my mom to even consider it was like a super joke. If any of you have parents that have lived in the same state, the same house for countless years, you know how hard it would be to try to get them to move states. Not move out of their house, move states, right? And so I told her, and she's like, well, that's probably going to be a no, but I'll at least pray about it. So a couple weeks go by, and I'm like, okay, we're going to leave in a couple weeks. And we started making plans. And I just said, doors were opening for me to get back and come back to work here and everything. So like, it was awesome coming back. But I remember my mom didn't know we were pregnant yet, and I didn't want the decision for her to move to be because we were having a baby. And any of you that have just a desire to see people grow in their personal walk with God, I had such a deep desire to see my mom grow. And so my heart was like, I want her to actually hear from God and actually say yes or no to going to Michigan with us before I tell her we're pregnant. So I invite her a couple weeks later to breakfast, and we go out to breakfast, and we're driving home from breakfast, and I was like, hey, I have something to tell you. She's like, I also have something to tell you. So you go first. She's like, no, you go first. So I turned to my mom and I just said, we're pregnant. And she says, I'm moving to California with you, or I'm moving to Michigan with you. And it was like, we both just wept, because it was just one of those moments where like she had heard from God. She had a journal of all these things God was saying and all these confirmations. And it was just one of those things like, you know, a proud mama moment for your son, but it was like a proud son moment for your mom, who's like hearing God and walking in trust in God. So she decided to move with us. So she moves with us. And when she moved here, so my wife's pregnant and just about to have a baby. And so lots of hormones, lots of things going on. Well, her and my wife did not get along very well. And there was a lot of butting heads and sandpaper and uncomfortability and very like high school drama, to be honest, in our household. My mom didn't want to let her baby go, even though I was already gone for a couple years at the time, you know, but didn't want to, was broken over leaving California, starting over, all these doubts, the stress, anxiety, and the fear of all that, compounded with living with people you don't know, and like the person who's took her son away, kind of, in a sense, you know, like all this stuff. And it just created like a really unfortunate dynamic. And I had to come to Jesus moment one day with them. It was very hard. Like, it was very hard. I had to sit them both down and be like, look, you guys need to stop bickering and complaining about each other, because this is tearing me apart and this is not okay. And long story short, my mom ended up, I'll move out, let's find me a condo, and we ended up finding her one and flipping it. And it was great. And their relationship got better, and it was redeemed. That whole situation got redeemed. But we had our baby, and everything was good, and we had a good pregnancy. And I will say, for any of you who have young families, or who are pregnant, or who are not pregnant yet, when we were pregnant, we were very intentional about our prayer time. We prayed over the baby every day. We prayed over the pregnancy every day. We prayed that God would give us a supernatural birth, that it would be the most pain-free birth possible, that it would be very quick, and just healthy baby and all those things. And the whole labor and everything process ended up being only about 4 hours in labor. And my wife did not use an epidural, which was pretty amazing. And we did end up having to use a little bit of Pitocin, which is like an inducer medicine. And but it was like a pretty quick, it was painful obviously for my wife, but just got through. and it was good and healthy birth, and we were just like happy just the way everything worked out. And yeah, it was great. And so that season went on, and we were new parents, and yeah. Interesting story about the Pitocin thing is we really wanted to have a natural birth, like everything natural, nothing, no medicine, no nothing. And so it was really, really a struggle when they came in like, hey, I think we're gonna have to do Pitocin. And we really fought it, to be honest. We really fought it. Lady Aju, that's crazy that you had. Yeah, that's awesome. Power to you. I have much respect for mothers and pregnancies. But I remember this with Pitocin was really interesting is we were praying about it. We want it natural. We want all these things. And I remember sitting in there praying about it and just asking God, like, what do we do? And in that moment, in that season, in that particular instance, I felt God say, I'm the one who created the Pitocin, and not in a sense like he wanted Pitocin, so it made, but just like this, whoever created it like had in mind like to create something to help women induce, and it wasn't like and all these things. So like it was like a God moment for me to be like, oh snap, like okay, we'll release it. So anyway, we used Pitocin. It was fine. So fast forward a little bit. Raising our daughter, we named her Amina, which means faithful and trustworthy. And yeah, it was good. And the season with my mom was good. And yeah, I'm working at Costco. And all that's good and everything. But one thing that happened is when we came back, all of our people that we thought were going to be like our people, not there anymore. The people we left, the good tight community, the church didn't feel like home. The community we used to hang out with were just in different seasons and different places in life. And so we didn't connect with them very much and basically just had a falling out with them. And so it was tough, really tough. Again, no church community, no real friends. It was tough. But one thing that God spoke to us in that season about the church we left originally, there was a lot of painful things that happened at that church, and I was, product of that. But also, I saw a lot of stuff and heard a lot of stories and just a lot of unhealthy things that went on in the church. In a mega church, you get a lot of dynamics. And so I remember one day though, like thinking, well, let's go church hunting. We went around, looked all these different places and just feeling like nothing was home. And I remember praying one day and God gave us just a bunch of different words about going back to our church where we came from originally. And one of them, and I just encourage you guys with this too. One of them was, are you afraid to go back to that environment because you're afraid that it will conform you to that way? Like, it'll shape you in the same way that other people have been hurt and hurt by that? Or are you willing to go into that environment full of the Holy Spirit, full of my vision, and help transform it into the church that I intended it to be? And through that, I just found out like, man, I'm really hurt. Like I was just hurt. Like I didn't want to go back because I was just hurt. And just receiving healing from that and moving through that was really important. And we went back there, and that's our home church, and it's been life-giving and amazing. And but we still never found our people. And it's and so it was tough for a few years. And sorry, I'm looking at the time trying to decide where I want to go because I won't be able to finish everything, and there's some juicy bits coming up. But I'll go this one next because Lady Aju and Alexander and there's a few ladies here. So so in that season, maybe a year later after my daughter was born, we got pregnant again. And it was awesome. Like, we were super excited about it. Like, I just wanted to be honest, I wanted to have 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, and just be done. I just wanted to be done. And so we got pregnant, and I think week 10 or something, my wife had a miscarriage, and it was really painful. I remember when, lack for, I don't know. I'm just gonna say, for when she started bleeding originally, I just was like crying, and I was sitting on the floor like, no, God, like, we don't want to lose the baby, and we were all excited about it. And we ended up losing the baby, and it was challenging, and I just was pretty broken over that. But I remember praying after that and praying through it and having God tell me, you will have another child. I promise. Very clearly said that to me. And so I wrote it on a sticky note. I have sticky notes right here. And I wrote it on a sticky note. Yeah. Alexander, it's real. And I put it on my fridge, on our fridge. And it said, you will have another child. I promise. Love, Papa. That I wrote on there. And every day, go to the fridge, open it. Every day, looking at that. And every day, trying to stir up hope. And so we were pregnant again, not that long after. And got 12 weeks in or something, and had another miscarriage. And that one wasn't that we had to get a DNC, and it was a much more physically challenging experience, especially for my wife. And it was really hard and really painful. And I just was so disappointed and so just discouraged. And I just remember thinking, like, why, But every day I'd go to the fridge and look at that sticky note. And it was like a really solid anchor for that season. And I remember just talking to my wife, like, I know this is hard. I know we're going through this, but God said we will have another kid. Like, we have to hold on to that promise. So every day we go to the fridge and we open and we're seeing that. And it was a very challenging season. We got through that. But then we got pregnant again. And that time we got pregnant, it was like, I've never prayed so much in my life, probably. Just praying over health and wholeness and a healthy bit, and things started to go well. And so it was like, oh, we passed the 12-week mark, at which case miscarriages are like dropped to 1% or something. And then the next mark, and I was like, oh, okay, we're pretty much in the clear. And we just prayed so intentionally over that baby and so intentionally over that. And we prayed again for supernatural pregnancy, supernatural labor and delivery, all this pain-free, all this stuff. And I remember coming up to the labor, we're like, man, just prayed so much. Like, we just wanted so much for God to move in this situation, just have a healthy baby. And so she goes in, she goes into labor, and we go into the hospital, and it was moving pretty quick. I think total time for the whole thing was like an hour and 45 minutes. And so the crazy thing is, she had, I don't know, 8 contractions, 10 contractions before we were pretty close to ready. So that was obviously painful. But no epidural, nothing. And I remember the doctor, like, it was going so quick that by the time the doctor got there, he walked in the room and he's like, oh, I guess we're ready. He's like a funny guy. Like, we like the doctor a lot. And he came in, and my wife, so the crazy thing is, she only had to push 3 times. This is our second kid, so it's not like, and this was a couple years, 2 years apart, whatever. She only had to push 3 times. And her contractions when she was fully dilated were 2.5 minutes apart. And for any of you who know anything about that, when you're about to have a baby, they're not 2.5 minutes apart. Actually, when they're 2.5 minutes apart, they're like, you got a while. 2.5 minutes apart, but fully dilated, 3 pushes, and no epidural. And we were there for an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes probably, till the baby was born. And it was smooth, everything went well, healthy baby boy. And I don't know about you guys, but something that was really, first of all, that's an amazing God story in itself. Just, they were like, oh, that's weird. You're not having a contraction for like 2 minutes. Gave my wife a breather. She's like, didn't feel anything. Oh, hey, push again. And then 3 times that was it. It was like the craziest supernatural pain-free experience ever for her. Not pain-free, but you know what I'm saying. And anyway, we really value names, and we really think that names are so important. In the Bible, they were like super important, like super, super, super important. But we just really value, and we really believe names are really, really important. And so we named my son Jace, Odyssey. And Jace means a healing, and Odyssey is like an epic journey. And try not to get too choked up about it, but his life just like is a miracle, and the pregnancy was a miracle pregnancy, and his actual name is just like an epic healing journey, and just the significance of that. And even attached to our last name, like an epic healing journey for our name, and redeeming, like, we're first gen believers, my mom and us. So just redeeming our family line, and redeeming, different things in her family, and it was such an amazing supernatural experience and time. And we have 2 healthy kids. He's 3.5. My daughter's 6 now. And it's so incredible to see how God moves and how he works, and his directing and his leading and his power. And I would just encourage you with the same word I gave a couple weeks ago. The thing that's really been the anchor for us, for my wife, for years, is the word God works everything out for good in the end. So if it's not good, it's not the end. And I just feel really, really strongly about that, and really have seen that. And this isn't part of it, but just recently in this season, like just last month, we finally found our people, and just started investing in new friendships and new relationships. It took 6 years after moving back to find our people, the people that we really feel like God has called us to be with and do life with. And God works everything out for good in the end. So if it's not good, it's not the end. I just encourage you guys, like, keep holding on, keep believing, keep trusting God, keep pursuing him, keep running after him with everything that you have. Because you might experience disappointment, but ultimately he won't disappoint you. So just grab hold of that. And so why it's so important to like write down your testimonies and write down the things that God has said to you, so that in a season 6 years long where you have no relationships and you're struggling to cultivate healthy relationships and community, to go back and say, wait, I remember 7 years ago, 6 years ago, when God said, I'm bringing you to find your people. I'm bringing you to find the people you're supposed to do life with. So you can go back and read those things. Hey, you're going to have another child, I promise. It's so important. And so I just encourage you guys, just take time this week to write something down. Write the things that God has spoken to you, write the things that God has done, write them down and put them somewhere obvious that you can just grab hold of it when you need it. Just be intentional about it. So thank you guys for listening. There's a part now. I'm kind of excited now because there's a part 3, the whole journey, and it's been a journey, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of pain and heartache, even in the next part of the story. I just bank on and anchor to the fact that God works everything out for good in the end. So if it's not good, it's not the end. And so I would encourage you, if you are inspired by this or you're encouraged by this, please share it with somebody. Encourage somebody to come out next week when we have somebody from our WoW community. I think it's from the WoW community. It might be 2 weeks from, I don't know. We're going to have some awesome testimonies the next couple weeks. And I would just encourage you to just invite people out or at least share the VOD with them. And then the other thing is, if you feel inspired or inclined to share your story or something that God's done in your life, please fill out that form. We need more testimonies in general. I'd love to get, half a dozen more people to commit. But I just encourage you, fill out that form. I'll reach out to you on Discord. We can set a time to connect. But if you feel moved by it, encouraged by it, please, fill that out. And we'd love to hear from you. Love to hear your story. And I'm trying to think if I think that's it. So anyway, next week or the week after is going to be Rain from our WoW community. Another person, Cerulean from the Ally for Christ Discord. N7 Panhead is going to be sharing eventually as well, a couple weeks from now probably. It's a lot to look forward to. Might be a change in schedule. I'm not really sure yet what the schedule change might look like. I might be doing Thursdays like lunchtime is an option. Just praying through it. And so let me pray, and then let me see. Is Susie live? Let me see. Stream updates. Okay, yeah, he should be live here in a minute. Is he live yet? Does anyone know? He is. Okay, so I'll send you guys over there. Let me pray and send you guys over there. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for today. I pray, God, that we would just develop a habit and a practice of stewarding the stories and the testimonies and the things that you've done in our life. God, I just release over everyone here just this story, this testimony, my journey. I pray that it would encourage and inspire and give life to somebody, and that they would receive from it just what they need to receive from it. God, let it be a blessing to them. And we just thank you for today. We thank you for the work that you're doing in our lives, and we just bank on the fact, God, that you work everything out for good in the end. So if it's not good, it's not the end, God. I just speak that and release that over the community. God, we love you and we thank you for this day, and we are sending you off to Susie in Jesus' name. Amen. Love you guys. Thank you for being here every week. I might be doing some in between streams. I might do like a Saturday or a Sunday. I'd love to get an affiliate, and to get affiliate I need 4 more hours of streaming a month. So I might do like 4 like game streams or marbles or something a month, and have like questions and answers or something the next month, just to get affiliate and then go back to our normal schedule. But just keep an eye on that. If you guys are available on the weekend or whatever and you see it pop up, just jump in. Probably be a lot more chill, playing games or marbles or question and answers. Maybe I'll interview somebody unrelated to testimony or something. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I love you guys. I will see you over there. Adios.
Sarah, what's up? Under redacted. Good to see you. Let's go. Friends, video also joining in game. Oh, shoot. Come on now. You're his story, bro. Heard you were live today with part 2 of the good old story.